Hello, beep, 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 beep. Welcome to the Court of the EDI Jester. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Hello, peapods and various nerdy-world. How we doing, members, Jesterites? We doing all right? Oh gosh, it's all happening, isn't it? So, buy me a coffee. If you can help, buy me a coffee getting towards the end of the month. For those of you that don't know, there's a marvellous lady called Ffiske on Twitter. Ffiske I met at the Battle of Ideas, because it's all coming up, innit? I've been saying about this for a long while. It's all coming up sort of in the next few days. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to see Caroline, I'm going to see all the peeps, you know? And there's loads of warrior teachers going, and it's going to be an amazing thing. So I'm doing LGB Alliance first, and then I'm doing the Battle of the Ideas. I'm so excited to be going this year, and if it wasn't for you lot, I wouldn't be going at all. So thank you for that. I don't go out much. Just, you know, mask on and trying to get myself in trouble. All right? So it seems fitting that I've got something here from the Daily Skeptic written by Ffiske, who I'm looking forward to seeing. If you don't follow Caroline, I'll put the links in the doobies. Please do. Caroline has been a commentator on this for some time. And she's commenting on this particular article in the 19th of October from the Daily Skeptic, saying the trans-inclusive culture guidance for museums is indefensible. Says Caroline, what's wrong with these nutters? Loons. Last month, the University of Leicester published a lengthy document that gave trans-inclusive culture guidance to museums. So this is the University of Leicester. Well, who are going to bother? Who do you want to bother? What about museums? They're a sleepy bunch, aren't they? Right, okay, museums. Actually, that's not a bad idea. I'll get started. So they're bothering museum people, right? The aim was to help these organisations be more ambitious and confident in advancing trans inclusion. Yeah, right. Where we heard that before. The guidance was unanchored from any attempt at moderation or balance, and therefore caught the attention of the national press. So people became aware. Why is the University of Leicester allowing its lunatics to flood museums with this shite? I don't know. Should we have a look? Yeah, let's have a look. It became a story, okay? It seemed to imply that arts organisations should nudge, indeed even shove aside their core remits of display and preservation, research and education, and instead refocus resources onto the promotion of EDI, identity politics, and in particular, gender ideology. It's like a march. Honest to God, it's like, watching the Uruk Hai march across the land, isn't it? It's like watching them march across the land gradually. And there's, lots of these sleepy people. Like, do you remember the end of Lord of the Rings when Frodo and... Not Frodo, because he can go back, but when Sam goes back, Sam Gamgee, little chubby one, he goes back, and people go, where you been? As if none of it ever happened. Right? That's what it feels like. I tell you it does. I don't know whether you feel like that. I certainly do. But what? Why aren't people taking any notice of this? It's happening in Ireland, it's happening over here. They're interfering in everything. For example, the guidance suggests that museums should ensure your allyship and support for the trans community is permanently visible. Another example, forget our established language from across millennia, forget that we are biologically sex species. The guidance suggests museums should use gender-inclusive language in shaping all elements of public programming. More of an unanchored overreach here, worth reading in full. That's a link there that Caroline put. Go and have a look. The difficulties are obvious. This isn't the purpose of a museum or art gallery. They are not engines of ideology promotion. Imagine if an institution, following the same logic, balanced the permanent visibility of transgenderism with the equally permanent visibility of all 9 protected characteristics under the Equality Act. Art shops would become agitprop shops. What about those who don't want to see ourselves reduced to our membership of identity groups, don't want to see the world through the lens of identity politics? Curiously piqued, I submitted an FOI request, Freedom of Information request, for those elsewhere other than the UK, to the UK Research and Innovation Quango. Now, I've mentioned UKRI before, many times, and their capture, because they've got the £7 billion funding for unis. I want to see, Caroline says, how much taxpayers had contributed to the creeping demise of free thought and quirky diversity inside our museum spaces. Not too bad. A mere £7,300 of taxpayers' cash helped to pay for this nonsense at Leicester. You can expect more of this. UKRI, 25%. 25% must go on EDI of any funding bid. But what is even more concerning is that this small grant was part of a huge grant of 1.25 million to the University of Leicester, which seems to have come with virtually no strings attached. The links to explore this grant further are provided by Caroline in the article. Go and have a look. You'll despair. Now imagine if the Trans Museum guidance is indicative of the quality and content of the wider research going on in these universities. 30 universities received the same sized grant for the same period. This at a time when household budgets are severely squeezed, as are state finances, with taxes and national debt at unprecedented levels. And the Tories can't think of any savings? I can, says Caroline. I can see her saying it as well. With a smiley face. The public commentary on the Trans Museum's guidance prompted Richard Sandell, co-director of the Research Centre for Museums and Galleries, and one of the audience's authors, to issue, along with others, a public statement rebutting negative commentary. And what Richard said on the Twitter, again, this is all in the article, there is plenty of room in museums for all of us. Read our statement in response to recent inaccurate and misleading coverage of trans-inclusive culture. Interest and support is growing and cultural organisations can continue to use the guidance with confidence. No, they can't. No, they can't, because it's all insane, it's all mad. And so's Richard Sandell by the look of it. Are you mad, Richard? Tell me. I'm asking the question. Quite happy to be proved wrong. Are you a raving loon? Right? Are you? Yep. The public statement is disingenuous, a number of points upon which it could be good to hear back from Sandell. The statement says that the guidance offers cultural organisations clear and practical steps to fulfil their legal duties. This is a reference to the guidance over interpretation of the public sector equality duty contained in the Equality Act to justify permanent promotion of transgenderism in public museums. I have outlined previously how the guidance does this. Again, another link from Caroline. Go have a look. This is a whole web. It's great. This from the guidance, for example, is not the mere fulfilment of legal duties. The guidance says, how can we develop trans-inclusive displays, events and public programming? By resisting partial and limiting engagement with trans lives, by embracing the challenge of thinking trans-inclusively across all spaces and programming. This is a cult. Folks, that's not Caroline, that's me. This is a cult. Caroline's far too decent a woman to ever say that. This is a cult. If academics and organisations are going to continue to place no boundaries or upper limits around the use of the PSED to justify the promotion of their identitarian agendas, the public sector equality duty has to go in full. This has recently been recommended by the Policy Exchange. Again, Caroline provides you with links to that as well. Next, on the issue of toilets, the rebuttal statement says, on the always sensitive topic of toilets, a number of comments have misrepresented the guidance. Nowhere does the guidance recommend gender-neutral toilets. It recommends separate male and female toilets, as well as all gender toilets, an approach that is widely supported by people with widely divergent views on gender and trans inclusion. And then Caroline responds with, that's funny, because the guidance says, by providing where possible, single-user bathrooms available to all, regardless of their availability, trans employees should be free to use the bathroom that they feel most comfortable using. So they produced the documentation, Leicester and this falsity Gibbon, right? They produced the documentation, and now they're lying about the documentation they produced in order to cover their asses because they've got caught by the press. It's like a child sat in the corner playing with his own feces when Nanny walks in. What's that all over your hands? What have you got? Wasabi. No, not wasabi, but you know what I mean. Help! Will Sandell make a public statement correcting his public statement? On the topic of gender-critical beliefs and freedom of speech and conscience, the statement says this, since the guidance is not a legal document, we did not include all potentially relevant cases, but pointed to the leading case of Forstater as the primary source of the rule that gender-critical beliefs are protected under the Equality Act. But then why does this guidance suggest this without proviso? Where does this advice leave gender-critical employees who do not want to be frowned upon or for not wanting to refer to men as women? Their guidance from Leicester says, by recognising the use of correct and individual stated correct and individual stated pronouns as central to a respectful, dignified and caring workplace. You don't have to respect anybody. You just have to tolerate them. Go in, do your job, tolerate the munters around you, then go home and see the people you like. On the topic of balance, the statement says that some articles have claimed the guidance is flawed and unbalanced because it takes sides. It is important to recognise that initiatives to improve trans inclusion are not discriminating against individuals or groups which have other protected characteristics. How's your echo chamber, Lester? God almighty. It interferes with all sorts of things, as well as encouraging the sterilisation of children. Get rid of it! God's crying out loud. Anyway, look, Caroline's done a fantastic job here. Okay? And it goes on further to analyse EDI. It's all the usual wallop, yeah? We must have inclusivity and equity. Resistance is futile. Hello, Locutus. It's all Borg-like, as Dennis would say. So, go and have a look. Caroline's written a great piece. It's well worth taking the time to read. It goes into much more depth than I have now. Well, it goes into a bit more depth now. I've done about half of it. So go and have a look. Do her the honour of reading it. That's in the Daily Skeptic. Link in the Dooberries. Buy me a coffee. Send me some money on Patreon. Not Patreon, on PayPal. Whatever you can do to give me a hand, please do. The end of the month's coming. That's always a bit of a squeaky bum time. So there we go. All right. Have a great day. I'll see you later. Thank you, Caroline, for this fantastic article in the Daily Skeptic. You go well. I'll see you later. Ta-ra, peeps.